All right, welcome everyone to tonight's call, which is on holistic health career routes and lab testing options, if that's something you ever want to include in your practice. And even more important than labs is what I'm actually mentioning it at the beginning of today's call. On the last call, I mentioned it at the very end, but I'm actually going to go ahead and start with that on this call because it's such an important thing that I think even predicates the value of lab tests. So I'm just going to be walking you through how our graduates, our students, and our instructors are working in this field. And the whole point of me doing this and of us providing this training is because there are pieces that you can grab from how other people are practicing and pull it into your practice to just take your practice to the next level. And there's also things that are not going to be for you. So you shouldn't be putting pressure on yourself to be doing all of the things, because the ultimate goal here is for you to find your personal zone of genius. Who here has ever heard of the concept of zone of genius? Anyone heard of that before or read the book, The Great Leap? Okay, I highly recommend reading or listening to the audio version of The Great Leap. I saw Sarah raise her hand. Sarah, you have any official endorsements for that book?
It's a good one and it's an easy read. It doesn't take long, but it's very insightful.
Yeah, totally. So I'm going to give you a real quick rundown of the main principles that I want you to carry along today's call. The first one being that for so long, like for multiple generations and throughout much of humanity, people evolved in a state of fight or flight. And it is physiologically possible to be addicted to our own thought processes because our body gets used to the neurotransmitters that get secreted when you think that thought or when you have that reaction. And the more you secrete a neurotransmitter, the more your body grows neurotransmitter receptor sites. And so you get this reaction going on where all of a sudden we get this addiction to our own thoughts without even knowing it, simply because our body's reliant on those thoughts to produce that certain concoction of neurotransmitters. That, along with the fact that we actually lay down myelin sheath the more we think thoughts, and neurological pathways get myelinated, and makes it even easier to think. So the first concept that this book is talking about is this phenomenon that what if it were possible that like we were actually leaving quite a bit of happiness and celebration and peace on the table simply because our own minds are wired to be in fight or flight. Has anyone ever felt like you've been in that position before in life where it's just like you're kind of wired to, like, you wake up stressed, you go to bed stressed, or throughout the day you're thinking about the things that stress you out, and it's almost like it's just like become part of your way of being, even if there aren't those emanating pressures 24/7. So that's the first thing he talks about, is like, let's open ourselves up to the possibility here that just because we may have grown up or biologically evolved, or even in the past year, for whatever reason, gotten our bodies in a chronic state of fight or flight, let's be open to a larger amount of happiness and peace, irrespective of our situation. Okay, so that's kind of the first breakthrough thing that he shares with us. The second thing is about you finding your zone of genius. So there's zones of competency. You might be really competent at something. There's zones of excellence. You might even be excellent at something. But the zone of genius is where that your heart is just like set on fire and you're like, I could do this all day long. And like, that's when work doesn't feel like work, right? Is when you're in your zone of genius, when you like want to research it on your own time, or when you want to think about it on your own time, or when you're like just so passionate about it that as soon as someone mentions it around you, your tone of voice changes. We've all been in conversations with people where it's like dry, dry, dry. And then you ask them a certain question, and all of a sudden you see their zone of genius. Like, I love this when I'm talking to guys who do motocross, because like you can talk about anything besides motocross and they'll be like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you mention like racetrack, dirt bikes, motocross, they're like full nerd mode comes out in that given moment. And it's just so fun to see them light up. So I mentioned that at the beginning of today's call because I'm about to take you on quite the journey through holistic healthcare. I mean, this field is so diverse, from online holistic health coaches that have powerful groups for women going through whatever stage of their life that they're in, all the way to like, a Oriental Chinese acupuncturist who works out of a hole in the wall, in Albuquerque, right? And you get this like wide range of professions. And that's the beauty of it. And it's supposed to be different. And you're not supposed to be like everyone else. And you're not supposed to know all the things. So in the very beginning, please put a 1 in the chat if you agree to, throughout the course of tonight, take what's going to serve you in your practice and stay on the shelf what's just going to stress you out. Okay. And what doesn't feel like it's in alignment. Please put a 1 in the chat if you're like, okay, I can agree to that. I'm going to absorb what serves me and what I want to incorporate. And I'm going to go ahead and not stress about other people's zone of genius. Because do you serve anyone when you're trying to operate in someone else's zone of genius? No, you got to find your sweet spot. Okay. So that is what the point of tonight is we want to just provide you the whole stars sky. What's that called? The night sky. And you can find your roadmap in the stars. Okay. I'm getting so philosophical this early on the call. Can't wait to see what it's going to be like at the end of it. So without further ado, right before I start sharing my screen and taking you through this whole field, I would love to hear in the chat, what do some of you currently do for work? Like, what's your background currently? And I accept almost everything, other than I would be really curious if you like owned a Krispy Kreme franchise. That would be very interesting. But if it's not that, I probably won't be surprised. Everything else I'm expecting at this point. So we'll just wait a minute. Go ahead and throw it in the chat if you don't mind writing out, or if you feel inclined to come off mute and just introduce yourself to the group, you're more than welcome to. So we got some registered nurses here. Super fun.
Yes, I'm a registered nurse, hospice nurse. I think I've been pulled that way because I like to do things more holistically, and I've been able to do that with the doctors. So, yeah.
Yeah, Deborah, it's been awesome to talk to some palliative care and like hospice nurses. You guys can use like sound therapy and essential oils and physical touch and like all sorts of, things that you're normally restricted to use. So yeah, that's awesome. Love that. Cool. We have a skincare and essential oil consultant and
well, I'm a farmer's market vendor.
Yes, Lanita, and I miss your food.
Yeah, so I help people with their transitioning of their diet. So that's what I do. I don't know what you call it, but for the most part, farmers market vendor, healthy spices and food and stuff like that.
I love it. Amazing. Lanita has, not only does she grow the most phenomenal produce in her backyard, but she has some amazing recipes. So I hope I can make it to Cedar City before the season's over. That's so good.
I'm in Tennessee now.
Oh, good. We're neighbors. Come down to Georgia, girlfriend. This is awesome. Cool. We have a retired teacher, another RN, biofrequency, terahertz, oils, sound color therapy, intuitive energy healer. So in other words, thank you for representing all of Holistic Health Educators. And I will turn the time over to you to complete the training. So thank you very much. Colon hydrotherapist, amazing. Chemical-free residential cleaning. That's so awesome. And then in-home elderly care and assistance. Coley, can you come teach a class on your skills and your preferences, please? Our students would love to hear it. So this is great to hear. One more, I work at a hospital as a care attendant sitter right now, and recently dropped out of nursing school to learn more holistic ways of healing. Awesome. Got certified in Reiki. Yay. So happy to hear that, Megan. I had a remote Reiki session done this weekend, and it completely lifted a weight off my chest I didn't even realize I was carrying. So happy with that, Megan. And then we have an Ion Cleanse practitioner, holistic health. So this is so fun. I'm loving hearing the diversity here. So you can already tell that we have a wide variety of people coming into this. So I am going to begin a training. First, I'm talking about nervous system regulation, and then I'm going to get into lab testing options. So my first question is, when it comes to the world of lab testing, it can be so helpful to know what's going on in someone's gut, Is there mycotoxins showing up in their urine? That's an indicator that they've had mold exposure lately. You know, what are their neurotransmitters telling us, you know, in terms of their neurotransmitter profile? What's their hair tissue mineral analysis like? There's so much data we can get from lab tests. But my question for you is, why would nervous system regulation potentially matter even more than throwing a bunch of lab tests at someone? Does anyone want to share why or their thoughts on that? Why would we start off this call about the secret sauce of the most successful holistic health practitioners talking about the nervous system?
The nervous system runs everything.
Yeah.
And it either harms you or heals you, like yourself.
Yeah. Definitely. Do you want to elaborate on that anymore?
Well, just like with cortisol levels and everything, like your adrenaline can actually impede your ability to heal yourself and to get rid of toxins and to cleanse yourself. And so if you deal with your nervous system and try to relax, you're actually able to detox and help heal yourself more naturally before you even start looking at labs.
100%. Thank you for knocking that out of the park. So I'm just going to share a couple slides with you all to re-emphasize everything Kelsey just said. And you're welcome to screenshot any of this. But your nervous system, your nerves are wrapping around every organ, gland, and tissue you have in your body. And you have parasympathetic nerves that release parasympathetic neurotransmitters. The most dominant one is acetylcholine. And you have sympathetic nerves releasing sympathetic neurotransmitters, primarily norepinephrine, which is another word we use for adrenaline. Well, technically noradrenaline, which then can be used as adrenaline. And so depending on the proportion of these neurotransmitters in our body is going to determine a lot about what's happening at every level of our body's biology. And I'm going to take you through a couple examples here in this graph. So we have, and a quick background on just anatomy and physiology. Your central nervous system is your brain and spinal cord. So this red area, just the brain and spinal cord. Your peripheral nervous system is everything else, everything that comes outside of the primary, like the spinal cord there. And so that's divided into two categories. Your sensory nervous system, which is collecting like just senses and sending this information up to the brain. And then your motor system is taking commands from your brain and sending it out to your body. And so you have afferent nerves and efferent nerves, like messages coming up to the brain and messages going out to the body. But you also have a lot of mixed nerves that can actually be bidirectional. And so within that motor system, the one I want to focus on here are your autonomic nerves, which go to the organs, glands, and tissues. And these are the ones that are either sympathetic or parasympathetic. Okay, so along the spinal cord here, you're going to see all these nerves coming out, and you have your cranial and sacral nerves that are parasympathetic, and then the ones in the middle are sympathetic. And the main distinction I just want you to remember from all of this is that acetylcholine is the dominant neurotransmitter being released by your parasympathetic nerves, and norepinephrine is the dominant neurotransmitter being released by your sympathetic nerves or your fight or flight, right? So acetylcholine is rest and digest, norepinephrine is fight or flight. And so depending on what these organs, glands, and tissues are being hit with is going to determine how they function. And I'm going to break this down for you. This next chart is the one that you should totally screenshot, okay? You have parasympathetic nerves and sympathetic nerves, and how are they affecting your different organs, glands, and tissues? In parasympathetic nervous state, your heart is slowing down, your stomach activity increases, your liver activity increases, your digestive activity increases, and you have more like just activity with your central, like your visceral, your primary organs in your body. With sympathetic nerves, which is when you're in fight or flight, that's when your body's like, okay, we need that blood in your limbs instead of in your guts. So that's where your heart rate's going to increase, stomach activity is going to go down, liver activity is going to go down, digestive activity is going to go down. Your kidneys are releasing norepinephrine and epinephrine, which is adrenaline, right? And then you just have different levels of activity at all these ways. Okay. So I want you guys just to keep this in mind, because if you have a client that is in chronic fight or flight and you're about to run a bunch of labs on them to help them out and figure out what's going on, I just don't want your money going down the toilet because this person never actually got out of fight or flight. I have one story to share right now just to hit this home, and then we can get into the other stuff. So one of my favorite somatic therapists. So somatic therapy is about caring about how the body stores emotions. And it's a form of therapy where you don't necessarily like talk about everything that's going on as much as do breathing exercises and physical movements to help move emotions out of the body, assuming that over 90% of emotions are actually experienced by the body, not the brain. And so somatic therapy, soma, the root word Latin is soma, and that means body. Okay, so somatic therapy is about how do we help the body detox from emotions. You might have people who have forgiven someone mentally, but their body still has a reaction every time they're around that person. That's because their body never reprogrammed. I'm super happy their brain did and that they forgave the person. But if we never go through the process of letting the body process that, or of retraining cell memory, the body is still going to respond every time until you address that. And there's so many techniques you can do to correct that. We're not going to get into that right now. But so she's a somatic therapist, and she used to be a primary care provider focusing on autoimmune conditions. And she was doing that for like over 10 years. And these autoimmune patients, their cases just got more and more complicated. And she's like, I can't figure it out. I cannot figure it out. And they're coming in high dose vitamin C, all the right supplements, autoimmune diet. They're doing everything physically like right that they should be supplementing with, eating, restricting, like all the stuff. And then a couple doors down from her, this somatic therapist opened up shop, and she totally called it woo-woo. And I'm super against using the word woo-woo because I think it isn't appropriate anymore. But she called it woo-woo, which I totally get. And she noticed that these people would go have a session with this lady and come back in, and their blood labs would be different after a single session. Nothing else changed. Nothing else in their supplement protocol, their diet, their life changed except for a single therapy session. And she described, it's like all of a sudden they were absorbing their vitamin C. She's like, it was the most bizarre thing. All of a sudden they started absorbing their nutrients. And she's like, it's almost like before therapy, because she went out and asked the somatic therapist, she's like, can you explain what's going on? And the somatic therapist did not have the words for, oh, well, their body was primarily secreting norepinephrine, not acetylcholine. So their, digestive systems were downregulated for the past 12 years. The somatic therapist didn't say that. All she said was that this person was holding their nutrients out in this like cloud around them. It wasn't letting them into their body until they healed. And then also the nutrients could come in. So that's how the somatic therapist described it. What we do know, and I actually do believe there's a level of energetic things that really are going on beyond even neurotransmitters. Totally believe that. But what we do know is that when someone switches out of fight or flight into rest and digest, you actually start secreting acetylcholine again, which is what you need to have. Stomach acid, peristaltic action at every stage of the digestive tract, proper immune system activity and immune regulation of your small intestine and large intestine, creating the right enzymes to break down your food, increase blood flow because the capillary sphincters start opening up and get more blood flow there. All these things change in your digestion when you chill out and when you like finally get into rest or digest. Okay. Cool. So I just had to beat that drum a little bit here before we jump into lab tests, because the lab tests are awesome. The lab test options are incredible, and it can be a game changer for clients who have been searching for answers and not found anything. But are we all in agreement that this emotional piece is actually number one? We're all in agreement about that. Okay, awesome. So you're very welcome to actually use these educational materials we have at HHE as you present to your clients. So if you're one of our certification students, you have access to these PowerPoints if you ever want to teach them. But I think this is like one of the most powerful things you can teach someone, because everyone's been told to relax. Everyone's been told you need to take time for yourself. You need to get out of fight or flight. And they're like, yeah, I know, I'm so stressed out. Like, blah, blah. Like, I know I need to relax. I know I need to meditate. But if you can show them a diagram and be like, if you don't want blood delivered to your digestive organs every time you eat, which is going to result in your hair getting thinner, your immune system getting weaker, your energy levels tanking, because, are you ready for this one? If your body's not absorbing nutrients, what does it rely on for energy? Adrenaline. Where's adrenaline made? In your adrenal glands. Adrenal fatigue, aka diabetes of the adrenals. Okay. People get adrenal fatigue if they're not absorbing nutrients because their body relies on adrenaline because you're not getting food to fuel your body. Yeah, I'm getting off my soapbox now. But I'm just saying, you can like map it out and show them. Like, I know you've been told to meditate, but just so you know what's actually going on in your body when we don't take time to actually do that Joe Dispenza meditation for 30 minutes in the morning. Or here's what happens if you put off booking with a Reiki practitioner another 3 months. I'm just going to show you what's actually going to break down in your body in the meantime. You don't have to be that aggressive with them. I'm being aggressive now because this is really important. But we've seen a lot of value in like actually mapping it out for people so they can see how their organs and glands and tissues are affected when their emotions are not regulated. Okay, cool. Go ahead and throw a 2 in the chat. Throw a 2 in the chat if you are on the emotional health bandwagon with me right now. And you will help us spread the word of acetylcholine versus norepinephrine going on in everyone's bodies right now, so that we can just raise that level of awareness about what's going on. And I know it's been my experience as a holistic health educator that people are actually like a lot more willing to adapt holistic living if they get how it works in their body. You know, if they like get the science, they're like, oh wow, didn't realize that, you know, that makes sense. So that's like why we love that, just throwing the science pieces in there. You can decrease the skepticism of some of these people like within a few sentences. Lovely. All right, so I'm going to start talking about lab tests now that the most important part is over. Okay, so what are the most common lab tests we've heard of? Like when you go to the doctor and they're like, I'm going to run some labs. What are they running? What are they testing typically? I can read lips, so if you just want to say it, I'll let you know if you got it right. I didn't get that one, Kelsey. You're going to have to come off of mute. Sorry. Oh, CBC, lipid. Okay. Oh, was that it? CBC. Yeah. So blood panels. Okay. So primarily blood panels. Those are like the most common ones. Okay. So they're looking at the blood. Now, the bloodstream is an amazing place to go to figure out what's going on with your blood cells. An amazing place to go to look at what's going on with your red blood cells, what's going on with your white blood cells. Okay. And what's going on with things being in your blood that shouldn't be in your blood, what's going on with your antibodies. Okay, so the blood panel is great to look at for what's going on in the blood. Same thing with triglyceride levels. We also want to check, there's certain nutrients that it is helpful to see what's circulating, but not all nutrients. I'm going to get to that in a second. So what are some of those blood things related? You know, someone mentioned A1C. In diabetes, instead of just measuring the amount of glucose floating around, you can actually measure how much glucose has gotten stuck to red blood cells because there's been so much sugar in the bloodstream for so long that it's literally glycated. It's literally getting stuck to the red blood cells. That's what A1C is. It's a measure of how much sugar has gotten like glued to your red blood cells because there's been elevated blood sugar levels for so long. Okay. So that's a great measure because that's a blood cell. White blood cell count. We want to know that. Do you have elevated white blood cell counts? And if you do, what's the proportion between basophils and eosinophils? Because one is going to tell you it's a bacterial overgrowth. The other is going to tell you it's a viral overgrowth. Are you low in something related to your immune systems and blood cells? Okay. These are all really helpful data points to collect. Same thing with antibodies, which is your antibodies are also circulating in your lymphatic system, but your lymphatic system does end up dumping into your bloodstream. So just know that a lot of antibody activity is happening in your lymphatic system because that's actually where they're manufactured in lymph nodes and also your spleen. But those end up making their way back into the bloodstream. And so those are all great metrics to look at for the blood. But here's my question for you. Sometimes we look at the bloodstream wanting to know things that like the bloodstream's actually not like the most representative of. Does anyone have an example of that off the top of their head where like the bloodstream, you can measure it in the bloodstream, but is it a really accurate measure of what's going on in the body? Does anyone have something where like there might be a different thing to look at to get a better idea of what's going on? Okay. So someone mentioned hormones. Totally love that. Cool. So we got some hormones. Totally. And then the other big thing, minerals and heavy metals. Totally. Minerals and heavy metals. So I think it's like I gotta look up the number. If Carrie's on, correct me. She's our hair tissue mineral analysis, but it's something like less than 1% of all the minerals in your body. It's less than a couple percents. I don't know exactly what the number is, but it's like a small percentage of all the minerals in your body are actually floating around in your bloodstream. Not only that, here's the biggest thing about minerals, you guys. Your body will not let your bloodstream drop below 7.4 pH. It is like the number one priority is to maintain homeostasis in your blood. Because what would happen if you had acidic blood and all of a sudden it like deteriorated the lining of your vasculature system and all of a sudden blood's flowing everywhere? That'd be terrible. Your body's not gonna let that thing get acidic. No, it's gonna keep it at 7.4. And so we can't look at the amount of minerals in the blood and say that it's an accurate representation of what's going on in the body because minerals are alkalizing. So if you're eating a diet that would naturally make you very acidic, your body's going to be pulling minerals out of your bones and out of other areas of your body to put it in your bloodstream to buffer your bloodstream so that it doesn't get to a pH that would kill you. Okay. So that's why like there's things like minerals where like if you want to know what your body's minerals are like, you should grab a hair tissue mineral analysis because your hair is your body's like last priority. Like if your body can have hair, it's like that's great. Okay. Like your hair is like it's beautiful, but like it functionally, it's not like it's not as important as like an organ. So that's why if you look at the amount of minerals that are in your hair, you're like, wait. Your body has enough minerals if it's showing up in a correct balance in your hair. So it's just a great way to test for magnesium, phosphorus, sodium, zinc, a lot of these macro minerals and trace minerals. And then you can also get a grip on heavy metals as well. So toxicity with lead, mercury, cadmium, aluminum. So that is a hair tissue mineral analysis is a phenomenal first test you could run on a client just to get an idea right off the bat, like what are they deficient in? Because if someone's deficient in magnesium and phosphorus and zinc and sodium, that's going to show up in a lot of ways. Okay. What are they deficient in? What do they have a toxicity in? Because then you can start them on a higher mineral diet. They're going to feel the effects of that right away. And you can start them on a correct detox protocol after their elimination pathways are open. So after they're having regular bowel movements, after they're sweating, after they're urinating plenty and drinking enough and their kidneys aren't going to get totally shot. Okay. After they're eliminating properly, then you could put them on a proper heavy metal detox. But there's actually even some things that you could have them take right away that are going to help to start subtly pulling it out. Like a lot of nutrition, like parsley, cilantro, nettle. What's the other really good liver one? What's the awesome liver detox one?
Milk thistle.
Milk thistle. Thank you. Milk thistle. You always got me, girl. Appreciate you. So there are some of those that are like gentle but effective enough. You're not going to be doing like some hardcore chelation with them right off the bat. Okay. So some of those things you can throw that in right away about if you feel like their body's good enough for it. But we put people on that stuff all the time. The herbs are just natural medicine. So hair tissue mineral analysis is like one of the very first tests you can run. And there's a lot of testing options out there. And let me grab I should have this page up. Give me a second to pull up the page because we have a page in our CERT programs that tells you what brands or like what labs you can go to run these tests. Yeah, Renee, you mentioned cilantro not with mercury fillings. Yeah, thank you very much for mentioning that because there are some of those that in the act of chewing cilantro, it will start to extract the mercury. So thank you for that quick note with that clarification. You do want to be careful in that situation until someone's had those removed. So, Coley, you ask about the brand. So I will pull that page up before this call is over and tell you what the brand name is. And you guys can copy and paste it, put it in the chat. The second test that I'm going to start sharing my screen here. A second really awesome test that you can run is, well, these are the next 3 tests I'm going to take you through. A microbiome analysis test, various urine tests, and then there are also saliva tests. Okay, so those are the next 3 that we're going to be talking about. Microbiome, urine, and there's a lot of different urine tests, and then saliva. And then I'm going to go a little bit deeper on some of the blood things you can test for in the blood that are not in traditional panels that absolutely should be tested for. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Carolyn, yes, that's correct. Am I saying we should not choose cilantro with mercury fillings? Yes, ma'am. In fact, that's a big reason why some people think cilantro they have an aversion towards it. They think it tastes gross because it tastes metallic to them because cilantro is such a strong natural chelator, it starts to pull metals out of their mouth. Okay, so microbiome labs, you can actually get a lab test done at several, there's a lot of people doing microbiome lab analysis, just so you all know. I'm going to start with this one. So to test for the gut microbiome is what I mean. So this is one company that we really like. They are the industry leader in terms of sequencing, like having the most comprehensive genome library for gut microbiome. So they have been at it for a long time. I'm trying to remember how many, like hundreds and hundreds of species of bacteria they have successfully profiled. I'm actually going to be sharing my other screen to give you a sample report. Here we go, sample report. Okay, so if you were to get this test done on someone, and I'll tell you exactly when I order this test for someone. I order this test if they have been trying to get their nutrition on point for a while and they're still having gut health issues. So they're not newcomers to the gut health world. They're not like microbiome, what is that? And they're also not like vegetables or sourcing your food and animal products correctly. What's that? Like they've been trying things. They've been trying the grass-fed animal products. They've been trying like the whole food based diet. If they've been trying things and like if they've eliminated deep fried foods, soda, processed flours and processed sugars, and they're still having gut health issues and they want actual data on what's going on, that's when I'll order them a test. Additionally, well, not additionally, the only other time I wouldn't order a test is if they are like, they don't want to pay for it, in which case we're just going to do our best to ask enough questions to get an idea of what's going on and then put them on a protocol for that thing and see if it doesn't clear it up. And if it still doesn't clear it up after we've tried troubleshooting it, then we'll go ahead and order a panel. Okay. Because this test is about $350. So what it's going to do is give us this beautiful report on the overall level of diversity going on in someone's gut in terms of how many different species do they have. And then within those different species are the proportions of those various species good? Because maybe you have someone who has like, 200 different species, which is great, but there's like way a lot of like 3 primary strands and then just like pieces of the other 197 strands of bacteria, right? So even though they have 200 species, the proportions aren't right. And so that's what we're looking at, the difference here in these like different measures of diversity. And this report can let us know what keystone species are out of range. So like what's high and what's low. And then also, this is really cool because let me know if you knew this. Did you know your B vitamins are actually made by your gut microbiome, along with some of these neurotransmitters like GABA and serotonin. And so when you can look at these functions and be like, whoa, like your B12 is not being manufactured or B1's not being manufactured. And even K2 actually is oh, look, it's on here, vitamin K2, woo. Even K2 is affected by your gut microbiome. And so these are all different vitamins that they can measure. And this also gives us information on how well your microbiome is doing based off of what vitamins are being produced. In fact, some of you have maybe heard me say this before, but this is like one of the coolest facts I learned this year is like, I learned that what makes good bacteria good and bad bacteria bad isn't just like, oh, we know that's a good strain and that's a bad strain. Like, how do they know what's a good strain? How do they know what's a bad strain? Does anyone want to comment on this? Like, how do you know the good guys are good and the bad guys are bad? Anyone want to take a whack at it? Okay, I'm going to tell you. The good guys poop vitamins and the bad guys poop toxins. It's as simple as that. So we like don't even care about the bacteria. We just care how they're like affecting our body. So like the good guys are straight up making you B vitamins, K vitamins, GABA, neurotransmitters. Like the good guys are making nutrients for you and helping you break your food down properly. And the bad guys are like pooping lipopolysaccharides, which is a huge inflammatory agent, or they're creating some type of mycotoxin that ends up triggering reactive oxidative species, which is what gives you free radical damage. Okay. So there's this like, there's different, that's the biggest distinction between the good and the bad is what they're manufacturing in your digestive tract. That's crazy, right? So cool. So we want the good guys so that we can have enough vitamins, which is another cool thing, because if you have someone who's like really low in B vitamins, our question isn't like, well, maybe they need to take a pre-methylated B vitamin. But the ultimate question should be, how can we get your gut microbiome balanced so that you're making that on your own, right? Cool. Anyway, so it just gives you great data on what's going on. Do they have any pathogenic organisms in there? And then they'll let you know about if there's any concerning ratios. I had a client recently that had a very concerning amount of an ammonia in their gut, and it's totally because he was overeating meat and it was fermenting, and he was eating like a high meat, high fruit diet, and he had like severe fermentation going on, and his ammonia was 100%. It was like in the 100th percentile, off the charts. So I'm like loving people who are on like the healthy meat kick, like get your meat from a healthy source, but they can read all they want about, you know, I'm not against carnivore diet. And in certain situations, it can be very medicinal. But if you got people who are just like cranking in the good meat because meat's super trendy for you right now, then I mean, it's great for you too. I'm not saying it's not great for you, but I'm saying I think you guys all know what I mean. To be able to show your ammonia is off the chart, buddy. Like you actually got to up your vegetables and cut back on the meat, and he's feeling way better. Okay, so it's just nice to have the data to throw in front of him while he's like consuming Andrew Tate information and just pounding the beef all day long. So it also helps with butyrate production. Acetate production, just good to know like where people are at. So the comforting thing with this is that you will have someone else who can help you interpret the first lab you do of this and the first couple labs, and then you can go ahead and take microbiome labs educational courses. And I'm totally talking to my regional director about having some of their people put together a course for our students. So he's just working with what teacher's going to do that. But so that's the microbiome labs. Let's give it up for the microbiome. Love those people who have been at it for years, sequencing all these bacteria. It's just it's so cool. Oh, whoa, coolest part about microbiome labs, they're a product line. And so they also make really cool products that you can put people on. I will say I made the mistake of thinking that like, oh, it's just a probiotic. Like everyone needs that. Or like, oh, it's stuff that everyone needs. Like they should just take it. And I did not realize how potent some of this stuff is. And for example, they have one product called HU58, which is a strain of bacteria that poops an antibiotic designed to kill gram-negative bacteria. In other words, it's like eating a bacteria that's byproduct is an antibiotic of the bad guys. Do we want that thing in our gut? Yeah, we do. Totally. Pooping antibiotics for us and killing the ones that you don't want. You don't want gram-negative, like too many of them. You need the right ratio. So here's the thing with them. You all heard of a Herxheimer reaction before, where like someone's cleansing from candida and it straight up gives them the flu. I put 2 clients like a couple weeks ago on HU58, and I had them supplement with IgGs as well. So IgGs are antibodies, which is what helps bind to either dead and decaying tissue or dead and diseased tissue, or to pathogenic organisms, and helps get them out of the body. It doesn't eat them up, but it sends off like a signal that tells your immune cells to come gobble it up. So you can supplement with antibodies, which is IgG. Their product is called IgG 2000. You can supplement with that when someone's going through a detox protocol to help their body have enough antibodies to gobble up these pathogenic organisms as the die-off is happening. And that can help decrease the level of Herxheimer reaction. But man, I put 2 clients on HU58 and IgG 2000, and it was not enough IgG 2000 or too much HU58 because they both came down with the flu within a week. And I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry guys. Cause it was like, you know, even following the normal dosing was too much for them. So just keep in mind, there's some of these things, they're actually pretty strong. And if someone's microbiome's out of whack, you might really need to titrate them into this. Like have them start off with a half capsule every other day or something, and then eventually put them up to like a full capsule. Because imagine consuming something that's producing an antibiotic that's killing off an overgrowth of unfavorable bacteria. You know, their immune system got a little bit overburdened. So that's all I have to say is just, even though it's like stuff that we think everyone like, oh, everyone needs it, but we got to actually be like really responsible about bringing these things back into our body so we don't overdo it. Love that. Tiffany, my Kardashian sister of the heart. I love Tiffany Rutledge. iPhone 13. Oh, iPhone 3. I love you. Okay, so muscle testing starting dose would be helpful. Could not agree with more of that. So the absolute best case scenario would be like muscle testing for them to figure out what to do. And Rochelle, I love what you mentioned. That's when fasting comes in. So Rochelle's going to be teaching a class this fall on fasting. Very excited to hear your input on how that, how to fast at the right regimen while you're going through a detox protocol, because it is true, your digestion takes an enormous amount of energy from your body and immune system activity from your body. And that's actually why, you guys, when you get sick, your body's natural instinct is to shut down your appetite on purpose. Like, you guys know that, right? You lose your appetite when you get sick because your body's like, yeah, we got other stuff to do. So food, we're going to get to you later. And don't worry about that, because like all of us are totally unaware of how much your nutrients your body stores. Literally the only thing you need on a regular basis is electrolytes, which are your minerals. Okay. So just remineralize your water and you can actually go a long time riding off the fruits of your past consumption. In fact, a lot of your vitamins stay in your liver for like up to a year. Okay. So very interesting how awesome your body is at storing nutrients. I don't want to say a lot, but there are some. So some you need like more regular, you need to consume more regularly, like vitamin C. You don't want to go more than like a month without it. That's how like sailors got scurvy. I mean, I wouldn't go like more than a day without vitamin C, for the record. So I'm not on record saying you can go a month without vitamin C. I'm just saying there's some of these things you're going to need more often than others, but some of this stuff, like your liver stores it for a long time. So just don't be scared of fasting, but you do need to keep your electrolytes up while you fast. That's the only thing I would say about that. And then, yeah, so I'm excited to hear what you have to say about that, Rochelle, how to incorporate fasting so that your detox reaction can be mitigated. Thanks for bringing that up. Cool. Renee asked, can the lab test measure stomach acid or the electrolytes as well? Great. So as far as the electrolytes go, Renee, there's two things to say about that. One is electrolyte is a fancy word for, anyone want to say it? What's electrolytes a fancy word for? Starts with an M. Okay, that's one of them you mentioned, Rochelle. Minerals, yes, girl, totally. So electrolytes is a word for minerals. So if you're looking about the long-term ingestion of someone's electrolytes, you can get that from a hair tissue mineral analysis. But if you're looking for like the day-to-day where someone's at, that's going to be the fastest diagnosed based on their symptoms. Because if they're very anxious and tight, they're probably deficient in magnesium. If they have high blood pressure, probably deficient in potassium. If they're low in energy and clarity, they are probably low in sodium. And yeah, zinc is a trace mineral, so I'm not actually sure off the top of my head. The other macro mineral is chloride, and I actually don't know what the symptom of that deficiency looks like. Anyway, so if you're looking for like short-term symptoms of a deficiency, I would just go based off of like how that someone's feeling, but long-term can totally be measured in the hair. As for lab tests measuring stomach acid, I need to ask Karen. I'm going to phone a friend on that one because she totally knows. So just, if you can give me a minute, she's here. So you're going to get the answer tonight, Renee, I promise. Okay. Great question. Well, ladies and gentlemen, where were we? Let's move on to mycotoxins. Any questions about the stool test at all before we move on from the gut testing option? So there's one thing you can run if you want more data on that, but keep in mind, no need to flush money down the toilet if your people are in chronic fight or flight and haven't cut out the gut killers. Okay, just remove those, just address those two things first. If there's someone who would be motivated by having the data in front of them, of course, run the lab, but it's not always completely necessary. Okay, brief overview of the next two things. We have Mosaic Diagnostics, used to be Great Plains Laboratory. Great Plains and great you are, okay? Love these guys. And guess what? They recognize our graduates as practitioners. Couldn't be happier about that. So these are all the different tests you can run through them. And these are various labs, not just urine tests, even though they are an industry leader in urine tests. So you can test for allergies and food sensitivities by checking IgGs and IgEs. You can test those appear in the blood. You can test gastrointestinal health with a stool analysis, like we were just talking about, and also through an oats test, organic acids test, phenomenal. You can do saliva, the saliva hormones profile. You can do these various different things for metabolic disorders. Advanced cholesterol profile, amino acids test, different mineral profiles, DNA methylation pathway profile. I actually don't know what that one is. So if anyone wants to educate me on it, please do so. Homocysteine test, iron and total iron binding capacity test. Okay, all these different metabolic panels. Metabolic is just referring to the process of how well your body breaks down and reuses nutrients to build it back up again. So this is mostly related to how your body processes food and how efficiently it's like breaking down substances and building it up again. Yeah. So that's what we're referring to when we say metabolism. So it's often referred, most of the time, this is nutrition related, but sometimes it's related to like chemical processes within your body. Like how well does your body recycle XYZ? How well does your body break down this when you no longer need it? You know, like homocysteine is a really good example, or people who are dealing with, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. What's the other H word that gives people severe inflammation? It's not homocysteine. Starts with an H. Who's got it? Anyway, it's another metabolic product that can trigger inflammation if your body can't break it down very well. Okay. And then toxins. So this is what I was going to get at today, is with like the mycotoxin profile and other urine analyses like oats tests. So mycotoxins, I'll test a client on this if I suspect they have mold poisoning. And so this is another one of those that I'll whip out just kind of in a unique situation. If they're like not sweating, they have ongoing fatigue, and like it feels like every system of their body's falling apart, that's when I'm asking them, have you been exposed to mold or any other mycotoxins? And if they're not sure, you can order a test that will test for it in their urine. This one tests 11 different mycotoxins. So you can see that these ones are presented here. And it's just really helpful to get an idea of like, okay, if they have a huge mycotoxin burden, they need to mitigate their house. And then also, unless there was just a past exposure, there's binders that they can go on. And actually, we have a really good presentation in the Human Body Master Guide. It's about an hour and 45 minutes long, where a mycotoxin specialist, Jennifer Jasper, I absolutely recommend her to anyone. She takes people through a mold recovery protocol. Okay. So definitely reference that if you want ideas of supplements they can be taking, a good diet to go on, and the emotional component of healing. Histamine, Yolanda, that was it. Histamine. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. So not breaking down histamine properly. Yeah, that's definitely going to give people some achy joints. Okay. So very good to know how your body's doing with that. Woo. All right. Where are we at? Do we have any more labs to go over? So saliva, hair. I got to phone the friend about stomach acid, but can we just take a minute, and I would love to hear from you guys on the chat today, who is either, if you have a question or if you're willing to share something cool that you learned so far. I would love to hear from you. So anyone want to, you can go ahead and put a 1 in the chat if you have something to share. Or go ahead and come off of mute, but I'd love to hear what's something cool you learned. Yeah, Rochelle.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you were talking about the minerals and the deficiency in the hair test. It just put it all into perspective for me because after having the virus a couple years ago, I lost like 50% of my hair, and that was September of 2021, and that I was sick, and in the following 3 months, I started losing hair like you were saying how when your body is in health, everything's in check, then hair is just, a byproduct of everything else being okay. Well, when your body's fighting life or death, then hair is the last thing your body is wanting. You're like, it's the last thing. So it kind of goes into it. I learned a lot during that time, goes into a dormant phase, and then the hair regrowth cycle is just not happening. And so I was playing catch up for about 6 to 9 months after that of waiting for hair to start growing in. In the meantime, hair is falling out like crazy. So when you said, a hair test, it may sound benign. A lot of people are going by like, oh, it's not as accurate as a blood test or this. There is so much you can tell from your hair. As my hair is growing out now, I'm seeing it like it's about down to chin level now, where it's all new regrowth since that time. And what's left, like from the chin down to the shoulder, is that hair from when I was unhealthy. And I can literally I see a difference in what grew back and when I was sick. It's still there, and we're getting rid of it, and we're cutting it off tomorrow, some of it, but it says a lot. It says a lot.
Wow, that's wild. You can like,
That helped me were sulfur,
Mhm.
MSM, for
Yeah.
hair regrowth, and I mean, I didn't even have to do a lab. You just know, you just know that it's working. You know.
Totally. Thank you so much for bringing up sulfur and MSM. I definitely space saying that. So thank you. And that's totally wild that you can like see it. And can you feel a difference, or is it just visual?
It's extremely shiny, like from there down, and then down here it's like brittle. So if I was to actually like let the natural hair color go, it would kind of look sprayed, and I put a lot of product to maintain it,
Yeah.
but you can definitely see just the texture difference, the shine. What's coming in at the roots is healthier. My scalp is healthier. There's a lot
Yeah.
going on there. So
Cool. That was a great share. Thank you so much, Rochelle. So super powerful personal story. Thank you for that. Love that. Tiffany mentioned I learned about differences between good and bad bacteria. Can't wait to teach that. It's so cool. So cool to learn about those differences. Love
Amy,
the yes, Renee.
could we just have Rochelle share quickly what like the quantity of the MSM and sulfur? Yeah. Thanks.
oh my goodness, I'd have to look at my bottle. Not sure. I did 1 scoop in an antioxidant juice. And let me look at it. That's a good question.
Awesome. Rochelle, while you're walking over there, I'm just gonna perk up real quick. We have an awesome mix of current holistic health certification students and also newcomers to the community. And I'm mentioning to everyone on here, we've got fall semester starting up. And if you want to be approved to run labs through these lab tests, all the ones I showed you today are people who accept our graduates. So just mention if you want to direct message me, and I'll pass that on to our team if you want the details about fall semester and what specials we have running for that. And also just the TNC live training that's coming up. So just send me a direct message if you want to have anyone reach out to you to get you information on that. Okay.
I can probably screenshot this, but just I'll maybe write it down in the chat. But if someone wants to write it down, half a teaspoon of this sulfur complex was MSM 1.95 grams. And that's a proprietary blend. I don't know how much of that is MSM and how much of it is wolfberry, but we talked about on yesterday's call about how powerful antioxidants are. And so it's a combination of the MSM and the antioxidants because, of course, my body was fighting a lot of radicals. So yeah, that helped every day. A scoop of that, you can take it twice a day. And when you're recovering, I can take a snap and put it in the chat if anybody wants a copy of that. Trying to think if there's anything else that I did during that time. I mean, a lot of things, like you said, of fasting, I have to say it. The fasting, it is what happens when you're sick. And I didn't know what I was doing 2 years ago in 2021, that I was automatically fasting while I was sick. And it did help me. Unfortunately, I succumbed to a doctor prescribing me an antibiotic during that time. And I had a little bottle and I was staring at it, and I hadn't touched antibiotics in 16 years. But, the fear of everything going around and saying, everybody's telling you have to take this, you're going to die. And I took that antibiotic and it just wreaked havoc on my gut. I had not had that. Obviously, now I know how damaging it is. Anyways, so this is how I recovered from it. I feel like the antibiotic probably set me back. So I had to work even harder to get better after that. So I think also you were mentioning earlier the minerals. Was it zinc or copper? When you have a deficiency in that, has something to do with your hair as well, like your hair and your nails, right?
Yeah.
Well, that would be
Yeah.
another add to that is the MSM, but also some zinc and copper was helping. You can tell even on your nails if you've had like some sort of trauma, like it'll be a little ridge in that area as it grows back out. So it's all
Yeah.
connected.
Totally. Love
Time I
that.
see somebody, I look at their health of their hair and I look, kind of spy at their fingers. If they don't have any polish on, I can see what's going on a little bit.
Yeah, totally. It does. You can feel when my grandma got chemo, she you can literally feel when they went through chemo on their nail beds because it goes from strong and then it like dips down to like super weak and then it slowly comes back to strong just depending on the dose. So yeah, that's cool. You look at nails. There's there's like some of those little tricks that I feel like are kind of getting lost in the ages because back before, even all this lab testing, when mom and I mean, I grew up in holistic healthcare, right? So I grew up like we had 10 siblings. So the chiropractor would come to our house to adjust us. No, like mom hauling all of us to the chiropractor. Okay. We had a 15 passenger van to get us around, if you can imagine that. So he would like come to our house and we'd all like line up and he'd do adjustments or we'd like lay on the ground while he'd like swing us around and all that. And yeah, it was totally normal. She'd have practitioners come over and it was part of their built-in protocol working with clients to look at their nail beds. Like that was just like something that they do. It's a huge diagnostic tool. So it's just, I'm happy you mentioned that because right now we're talking about these cool labs, but you know how much you can tell about someone from their tongue, from pressure points on their feet, even from their nail beds, from their face, from their eyes. Like our whole body's a map. Okay, so it's cool we have the test now, but there's also like a bunch of free stuff we can do just by taking a good look at our body. Totally. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, Rochelle. And yeah, the supplement you put in there 1.95 grams, which equates to like just under 2 grams, which is 2,000 milligrams, which is how a lot of supplements report the quantity. Anywhere between 1,000 and 3,000 milligrams or 1 and 3 grams is a super standard dose for MSM, in case anyone's curious. Between 1 and 3 grams, or in other words, 1,000 to 3,000 grams of MSM. I've seen some people supplement like 5 grams a day, but I'd probably muscle test yourself on that first. But it can be very powerful in recovery. Yeah, thanks, Rochelle. Rochelle's one of our new health coaches who is helping women. Yes, I can tell too. You're beaming with love. Good. Share. Anyone else want to share something? What did you learn, or what else do you want to contribute to this lovely discussion? Cool. All right. So someone asked, what is muscle testing? Love that. So muscle testing is a shortened way of saying applied kinesiology. That's like the longer word for it. And muscle testing is like the most common place really you'll see it, like watch muscle testing happening is like if you go to a practitioner, like a chiropractor's office or any kind of like holistic practitioner that does this in the practice, they'll usually have like a client stick their arm out and they'll ask the body like yes or no questions, or have like the client hold a supplement up to, let's say I have a tincture here, hold it up to my body, and then they'll test me for like, is this beneficially effective and tolerable, and then dosage. And when the body, like however the body responds to these questions, can give us, it's a form of biofeedback, can give us feedback on the body's needs. And this does happen on a subconscious level. Actually, other people would actually consider a level, instead of a level below consciousness, they would actually consider a level above consciousness, which would be the quantum consciousness. So you have like unconscious, subconscious, conscious, and then quantum consciousness. And that's really like the realm where we're looking to get feedback from the body. It's just like a biofeedback unit, but you're just asking the practitioners the biofeedback thing, asking the questions. So that's if someone else is muscle testing you, you'll put resistance on their body and get feedback from them that way. And then if you're muscle testing yourself, some people ask yes or no questions with like their hands. Like I've seen the lock and key a lot, or they'll do it with like it'll be like no and yes, or no and yes, or like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that type of thing. And then other people will dowse with a pendulum. So, and there's like a whole thing behind it in terms of like the micro musculature movements of your fingers that happen like literally at a subconscious level. It's very interesting looking into how your body works like that. So hope that answered your question. Let me know if you have any other questions about muscle testing. But last thing I'll say about that actually is that the state of the practitioner and the state of the client or the person matters a lot, because you want them to be hydrated and have like, you don't want there's like a whole thing about polarization where you're getting like opposites from people. So you want to like test the person you're working with to make sure they're testable. And like my mom actually also always like balances people's chakras before she tests for them. And then also with yourself, just seeing like, are you in a straightened energy to be able to be jumping into someone else's quantum energy field or not? Because maybe you need to get yourself like a little bit more aligned before you're doing testing. So that's actually one of our top requested courses at HHE right now is muscle testing mastery. So stay tuned and you'll hear more about that getting released. Renee, about the micro, I'm trying to remember. There's actually a scientific term for what happens when the little muscles in your fingers move, like without you consciously directing them. I'd have to look it up. It's in one of the 500 tabs on my cell phone right now. So the odds of me getting that for you right now is extremely low. But if I do find it, I will include it in our next training call. How do you balance chakras before muscle testing? I cannot wait to answer that. So I'm going to answer the above question, and then we're coming back to that because this is like one of my favorite things to talk about ever. Amy, do you recommend where we could find information on lack of minerals and how it manifests in the body? Yes. So, Asia, do you have my mom's book? And I will. Okay. So this book is like all about minerals, pretty much. Just kidding. It's about like 500 things, but the mineral section is on pages 80. Where does it start? 79. So 79 through, and the mineral chart's also in the HHC curriculum. Asia, if you want to go to the HHC, it's under what, digestive health? No, water. I think it's in the first section. So you can download the mineral and vitamin charts. And for every mineral and vitamin, it tells you what are the food sources, why we need it, herb sources, and then what are symptoms of a deficiency and an excess. So the deficiency of phosphorus is decreased appetite, skin sensitivity, insomnia, anxiety, stunted growth, bone and joint pain, poor memory, weakness, shallow breathing, quick to anger, or irritability. And toxicity would be brittle bones, weak immune system, poor kidney health, anemia, breathing, and heart problems. So in all of these, you can see what the excess and deficiency would look like in this chart. So that's one place you can go for that. Yeah, did that answer your question, actually? That's the main thing I got. I love the minerals section. Yes, Rochelle, you do want this book. It's so good. Kelsey, is that was your thing doing that with, okay, I don't know. All right. The next question we have here is how do you balance the chakras before muscle testing? So I'm totally going to jump into this. Yolanda, you had your hand raised before I saw this question. So let's go Yolanda first.
Okay, I just had well, kind of two questions. One is you were talking about how you can use blood tests for things that other labs don't usually. I was very interested in that, so I wrote it down. And then was it just the microbiome labs and Mosaic Diagnostics that you were recommending, or that will take the our certification? It's just those two, right?
No, there's like a list of, I think it's like 9 labs you can see it in the, I can't remember if it's in the HHC or TNC. So I got to ask the team where that's posted. Let me ask Carrie really quick because she just updated it with the lab that accepts our graduates for hair tissue and mineral analysis. Let me ask her. Hey, Carrie, quick question. Do you know where the lab test options that our graduates can use is posted in the curriculum? Okay, cool. So hopefully she responds to that right away and I can tell you exactly where to go to look for that. As for the blood tests, so there's two really awesome things that we can test for in blood that isn't always included. One is the advanced, there are panels that you can request to get as much data as possible on thyroid. So I know that there's other tests that you can use to get more information about the thyroid, but the advanced thyroid panel can be very helpful, and that's not always run on the first one. But the other one that gets used a lot more in holistic health than it does in the medical field are IgG panels and IgE panels. And so here's the thing with antibodies is, and Yolanda, before I delve into this, have you ever had one of those panels run before, or do you understand the general?
Yeah, actually both.
Okay. Okay.
What they are.
Okay, cool. Okay. So then, yeah, so those are the other main blood ones.
Okay.
Are there other blood ones that you've heard of that you're curious about?
No, I just was curious when you said other ones that we don't normally use, but I just read about actually the thyroid thing, and I know I've had the IgG ones several to see what I'm reacting to. So
Okay.
yeah.
Awesome. Now, was that useful for you when you like?
Yeah.
Cool. So here's the thing with the IgG panels, and then we're going to get into the chakras. So antibodies. Okay, antibodies. Who here thought that antibodies were like an immune cell that like gobbled up invaders? I totally thought that. I thought like antibodies like ate the pathogens, that they were like, I'm an antibody, I'm going to eat this bacteria, right? I thought that's like what antibodies do. Wrong, okay? What's a good analogy for antibodies? Antibodies are the special forces in your body's immune system army that are deployed to locate the offender and send off a flare so that the squad knows where to drop a bomb. Or no, so that the squad knows where to invade. That's how it works. So the antibody's only job is it's a lock and key mechanism. The antibody is configured to attach to a specific ligand. A ligand is like the word we use in chemistry to describe something that's sticking out of a cell. So this thing is sticking out of a harmful like bacterial organism or a virus or a mycotoxin, whatever it is designed for. And like this antibody is configured to lock on there perfectly. And the shape of these ligands, the thing sticking out, changes bacteria to bacteria, virus to virus. We know what ligands look like. What's a popular ligand that we've heard of a lot in the past 3 years? It starts with an S and it ends in protein. Spike protein, okay? So spike protein is a ligand. That thing's sticking out. In fact, there's like lots of them sticking out. So what's the antibody for the COVID? It's designed to like locate the spike protein and be like, gotcha. And then what it does is the antibody attaches to that invader and then it sends off a flare. And then the immune cells that are designed to gobble up invaders like macrophages, they come over and eat it. So the antibodies don't do the eating, they do the locating. And then they send off the flare. The bigger immune cells come gobble it up and recycle it. Okay. So just a cool distinction to learn about. Because if your body has a bunch of antibodies for like wheat or an antibody for almonds, like if your body has little antibodies that are like, that's an almond, and it like attaches to the almond and it sends up a flare and then the immune cells come over and gobble up, like, is that gonna give you some food sensitivities? Yeah.
Can I just ask you one more thing about that? Now,
Yeah.
I've heard that autoimmune disorders can be from, well, first of all, leaky gut. So things are coming through that shouldn't. But I heard that your pancreas cells look a lot like dairy proteins. And so sometimes an autoimmune diabetes type 1 can be due to that. And then thyroid is like wheat, gluten, or I think, I don't know. I might be making that up. I just,
Yeah.
I've heard that it can cause inflammation and even destruction of your own cells.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't comment on the dairy and pancreas and wheat and thyroid, but 100% that autoimmune is when your immune system has lost its accuracy. So you want your immune system to have accuracy and power. Those are the two things you want. You want it to have enough of the right cells and you want them to be accurate. So if either of those are out of whack, you're going to have problems. So in autoimmune, you have enough, well, not always actually, but an autoimmune, it's lost its accuracy. And so leaky gut 100% can disrupt the accuracy because let's put it this way. If you have those food particles that are improperly digested and coated by the liver leaking out into your bloodstream, and now all of a sudden, since your body can't identify it, it's developing antibodies for it. But what if the configuration of those food particles are similar to our own organs? Then all of a sudden your body's cranking out all these antibodies for something that looks similar to your human tissue. Okay. Just because the almond particle wasn't supposed to be floating around in your bloodstream. It's not like your body, your liver. I don't know if you guys know this, but your food, it's actually an incorrect visualization that food goes directly from your small intestinal tract into circulation in your body. It all passes through the liver. Like everything goes through the hepatic, is it the hepatic vein? It would be the hepatic artery. It goes, hepatic is of the liver. So everything that gets absorbed in the small intestine gets sent through the liver and then distributed out to the body. And so that liver I'm telling you, we can't send our livers enough love. We cannot send that liver enough love. It's phenomenal what it's doing. But as particles and substances are passing through the liver, it's either getting detoxified or properly coated and then and broken down. And then your liver will store some of it in its like locker room of stored nutrients if your body doesn't need it in circulation, or it will attach it to a red blood cell and send it off to go get delivered. Fats actually get traveled through the lymphatic system. So that's new. We thought the lymphatic system was just the sewer system of the body. It's not, it's the subway. Yeah, totally. Huge nutrient delivery system that we've been learning about. I think that's really fascinating. So cool lymphatic system also helping us out with coming in clutch with the nutrient delivery. So cool.
Amy,
Yeah, Renee.
I'll just quickly recap. So the antibodies, are they proteins that attach to the invaders or the ligands of the invaders and then send signals or flares to what, white blood cells or our immune system? Or
Yes, correct. So they're made out of proteins. I had to really quickly check if there are any that are not made out of protein, but it appears that they are all proteins. So
Really?
they're, huh?
Nope, sorry.
No, you can go.
Okay, so the IgG and IgE measure these antibodies, and if there are too many,
Okay, so this is good. So there's so IgG and IgE are two different types of antibodies. So there's 5 main types of antibodies like IgM, IgA, IgG, IgE, and IgH or IgI. IgI.
okay.
Is there an IGH? I'm looking at my little nursing team here. So anyway, I'll nail that down. But those are all different types of antibodies because like your body has different types of antibodies that exist in your mucus. And IgGs are like the primary one. I think like 80% of your antibodies are IgG actually. It's a lot. So you have IgGs are the dominant ones, or IgG and IgAs. There's a lot of both of those. But you have different IgGs in different quantities throughout your body. And so, yeah, IgG and IgE are the two most prominent indicators of food sensitivities and of also mycotoxin prevalence.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I really got to brush up on my immunology. facts.
No, I
Yeah.
love how you simplify this because I've never understood those before.
Right? Like I totally also always thought that antibodies were the things that gobbled up the invaders, but I didn't know that they are just the guys that find it and send the flare. Now, oh, I gotta control myself right now. We're having a separate call on immunology. I already decided it because there's like so many cool things I want to share right now. But yeah, it's just valuable to know because a lot of these antibodies are configured in your lymph nodes, and your lymph nodes can swell from the size of an almond to a golf ball while it's trying to crack the code for how to attach. So get this. Your body finds a pathogenic organism and a little carrier protein drags it up to a lymph node so that the lymph node can go to work trying to crack the code. And then when it cracks the code, it manufactures like millions of antibodies and releases them into your lymphatic system. And this is why lymphatic motility is so important and why it drives me insane that we put sick people on a bed in a hospital and don't jiggle them. They should all be jiggling. Okay. Thank you, Lenita. Yes, thank you. Lymphatic massage, foot massage, pump, 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 chi machine. Okay. People need a jiggle because what happens if a lymph node cracks the code and then someone's completely stagnant? How long is it going to take for that antibody configuration to make it all over their whole body? I'm not saying people who are sick need to be doing jumping jacks, but I'm saying it will delay the recovery process if you're totally stagnant. Cool. Another fun fact, just keeps getting cooler. I also didn't realize like how much detective work was involved in this. And that's why it's called the adaptive immune system, because it can take 3 to 7 to 14 days for the antibody to figure out how to crack the code. That's why it's called like the adaptive immune system. Because did I say innate or adaptive? It's the adaptive immune system. I hope I didn't misspeak. Your antibodies are the adaptive immune system because it has to adapt to what's coming in. Your innate immune system just gobbles up anything that looks like disease or dying tissue or like super common invaders that are like, we're not getting into it, but there's certain invaders that your body already knows how to gobble up. Cool. So fats travel through the lymphatic system to be eliminated. Always thought it was just the sewer system. Yes, Denise. Not just eliminated, also to be distributed. Now, that's not saying that's the only place fats are delivered, because we know that blood serum levels of triglycerides is indicative of how much like fat is circulating in the body. So it's not just the lymphatic system, but absolutely used in lipid delivery, the lymphatic system. So very cool new thing. Oh, Yolanda, you mentioned sauna when you're sick. That totally, that's awesome. Super boosts circulation and also stimulates lymphatic flow. So thank you, Yolanda. Okay, I'm coming back. Oh my gosh, Carolyn, you asked about fatty liver. Carolyn, I have to answer your question, but I need to answer the chakra system first. Please stay on, Carolyn. I must answer this. Fatty liver disease is like one of my favorite things to talk about, and non-fatty liver disease. Okay, so chakra system first. There's a lot of different techniques people use to balance. I'm just going to tell you guys what works well for me and my mom. And then you can let me know what works well for you. So I'm going to tuck in my shirt and don't laugh at my pants. Okay. I've gone off the deep end, you guys. I've gone off the deep end. They're colorful and patterned. I know. Okay. So here we go. Here's our lesson for tonight. So we know I have these like 7 energy systems in the body. And we've actually known this for like over 5,000 years, because the Chinese, it's like written on walls in caves, however long ago. And it's cool because now science is also like testing with biofeedback, like magnetic measuring devices that like there actually are energetic orbs in those exact spots in our body that's like measurable by like frequency. So that's cool. But anyway, what I do is I just take my right hand and I just feel where I have like a blockage. So I just come from the ground up, root, sacrum, solar plexus, that type of thing. And I'm just like moving up and feeling where I have some resistance there. And then it really helps to know what emotions are associated with that area. So if you like, stability is going to be down here, intuition and trusting your, you know, and receiving downloads and being in alignment with your life path is going to be up here. Speaking your truth is going to be here. Heart issues are going to be over your heart chakra. I'm trying to remember solar plexus. Someone help me out. Okay, so it just helps to know, because then as I'm coming through and I feel emotions, if I feel stuck, I'll unwind to release whatever energy is there. And then I'll rewind to put in the thought that I want to implant there. So if I get stuck at my root chakra, which is like financial stability, because maybe we had like a huge month and then a low month and then a big month and then a low month. And I'm feeling like, oh, there's some financial uncertainty going on. I'm going to release the insecurity of that. And I'm going to impress like certainty about the direction we're going and stability. And I'm going to like circle that in until I feel good. And then I feel flow there. And then I move up to the next area. I'll be like, good, good, good. Oh, heart, feel some stuff, release what you don't want, put in what you do want. And then, you could do that over your throat and then put the third eye and crown. Okay. So that's my technique. Mom doesn't always use the thoughts. She just does her hand spinny thing. So she's coming up someone's chakras. She's just circling the good stuff in, actually. I've seen her do it. She's very magical at it. So that's my system. Does anyone else have a different system they want to share for how they balance their chakras?
If I have time, I do a little quick meditation where I just imagine each one opening up. Like it doesn't take a lot of time, but I'll just kind of sit. If I can feel like I can be quiet and have that moment, I'll just imagine it almost like each color kind of just opening up and blossoming in each center.
That is beautiful, that blossoming imagery.
And then it almost feels like a figure eight, like a flow coming through. It's
Cool.
awesome.
That's so awesome. I love that. Now, one thing I want to mention on that, Sarah, for some people, they might have like an overly open chakra, and their balance might actually be in like someone with an overactive throat chakra feels they need to say everything that runs through their mind. They have an overactive throat chakra. So in that person, their balancing might actually be like a little bit of healthy disclosement. So anyway, I'm just mentioning that because I thought that was like an interesting concept. I haven't explored it a ton. I just felt like throwing that out there because I'm trying to think about having an overly open heart chakra. And part of me wants to believe that's not possible. But the other part of me is well aware of the amount of evidence I have in my life of an overactive heart chakra. So anyway, I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you on the heart chakra balancing. Okay. Moving right along. Tiffany, you mentioned yoga and breathwork and meditation, 100%. The coolest part about this is like this stuff happens on a totally subconscious level when you take care of yourself. Singing at church. Yeah, talk about a chakra balancer. Just go sing in a choir at church. Everything's going to be aligned when you're walking out of there. Seriously. So that's a good one. Think about putting like faith in your creator, faith in your life mission. You're singing, you're using your voice. So there's some of these activities like, drum circles. That's a chakra balancing activity. So yeah, yoga, breathwork, meditation, all this stuff can happen on a totally subconscious level just through doing these other activities. Cool. Ooh, Tammy, you sometimes pull stuff out of the chakra. Do you want to share on that, Tammy? And then we'll switch back to fatty liver disease. This is why I love holistic health, though. I'm just saying. I don't know if someone needs to go sing in a church choir or take a magnesium supplement, but you probably need both. So that's what your protocol is. Anyway. Hi, Tammy.
Hi. So yeah, sometimes I find like where it kind of sticks as I'm circling. I don't use a palm, I use my fingers, and I can feel it stick, and I will pull stuff out and then send it back into the earth to be reprocessed.
So you redirect that energy.
Cleansed and to be cleansed and reprocessed and brought back to however it needs to be used.
Wow. That's a cool idea, putting that back into the earth to recycle that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I love that. Thank you. Because I've had other people send it like away, but I never thought about putting it just into the earth. It's like the most grounding thing there is. So
yeah.
All that and above. All right. Last question, then we're moving on. What does it feel like on your fingers when it's stuck?
sometimes it can feel like gooey black. That's kind of what comes to mind. I get a lot of images and stuff when I do it, so I have a lot of visual with mine. It's a lot. It's more than we have time for right now. But yeah, it to me it just feels gooey, sticky. Like you just know intuitively if there's something in the way, like if there's a blocked energy that you need to move aside or pull out.
Yeah. Carolyn, I'm happy you asked that actually, because I need to mention the first time I ever did this on myself was like June of last year, and my root chakra was so stuck. I spent 10 minutes working on it before I felt it start to budge. And I'm talking 10 minutes of unwinding. And of course, I have like one of those like ding things. So I was like, ding. And then I was like working on it 10 minutes. So if I didn't trust my intuition, I would have thought that I'm not feeling anything and this is broken. But like I felt my hand move up and it was just stuck. And I was like, whoa, I have you know how some people have a heart wall? You can totally have walls up in any one of these energy centers. And so I did that unwinding, and then I started doing Joe Dispenza meditations. And now when my root chakra is stuck, I can unwind it and rebalance it like within like a minute or two. So it doesn't always take that long. I mean, maybe faster, but when you're first doing it for the first time, like who knows what you're going to find. That heart opening up or that voice opening up, different parts of your body opening up, that can like totally be different person to person. So you can do it yourself, or you can have assistance with it. So there's some great people who are just energy workers I really trust who can help with that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on camera to say hi. And I don't know if you've ever had any kind of energy work done, but if you want to stay on after Carolyn, like we can totally keep talking. So to round this out with this question about how come the liver gets fatty if it doesn't have fat going through it. So does anyone want to give this question a shot? Why would the liver get fatty if the fat isn't going through the liver? In other words, what other nutrient converts to fat when it's in excess? Correct. Sugar, glucose. Yep, 100%. So when carbohydrates are in excess, your liver will convert it to a triglyceride. And it will there's three things that happen. The first thing the body's going to do when there's excess glucose is make glycogen, which isn't fat yet. It's just stored carbohydrates. But as soon as your glycogen storages are full, you only need 2,000 calories of that, then it's going to start turning the rest into lipids or fat. And ideally, it sends that out to your body to get stored. But we've actually been finding it stores a lot regionally, just because it's like, oh, I might need this later. I might need to break this down. Or like, oh, I don't need to send this out to the rest of my body. I already have high enough levels of circulating triglycerides. So it just stores it regionally. So high carbohydrate intake. And then so it's like, what are the solutions to that? Then fasting and, decreasing carbohydrate consumption, weight loss, all the healthiest things you can do for the liver. Now, in some cases, it's definitely come from like pharmaceutical induced toxicity of the liver or other chemicals that people have been exposed to. So sometimes it's pharmaceuticals and sometimes it is other toxins they've been exposed to. But, the liver detoxification pathway is to attach a lipid molecule to a reactive molecule to stabilize it. That is literally how the liver detoxes. So we talk about detoxification like a juice cleanse, like getting toxins out of your body. Detoxification in the world of liver health is to make a free radical, unstable reactive molecule that's going to harm your tissue, to add whatever it needs to add to that to stabilize it. And that's what detoxification means to your liver. And so you have these detox pathways where the toxin will come in and it'll come out the other end with an adipose or like a fat molecule attached to it, which will then either get sent out and stored in adipose tissue in the body or stored regionally. So they've been finding a lot of fatty liver in people on long-term pharmaceutical use. So it's not just from carbohydrates, because you have people that eat really well and their body's just processing some kind of chemical toxicity. And that could also be from chemical exposure too. So environmental exposures. That's another really prominent cause of fatty liver. Is any of that ringing a bell or sounding helpful? So yeah, getting rid of fatty liver, that's going to be the fasting, and then also just helping the body with detoxification. So regular colon movements, kidney flushes, and then eventually a really good liver cleanse. People will do high doses of milk thistle at that point, but you do want to make sure your detox pathways are open. I would like maybe find a detox coach for that stage. Any other questions about that? And if I'm missing information, please let me know about the situation.
So when the liver, I'm sorry, so if it's a matter of the medicines, does the liver still convert, does it still make triglycerides, or
Yeah.
you said when there are excess carbs, the liver
Yeah.
so what does it do when it's a environmental toxin, or
It just attaches a fat molecule to the toxin to stabilize it.
okay.
And then that gets stored either in the body or it gets stored regionally, like locally in the liver itself.
Now, what test is it still triglycerides that would measure if that's happening, or if it's a toxin versus a carb?
I don't know. So for starters, I don't know. With the information I have circulating in my brain, I would rule out carbohydrate overdose by checking their A1C level and their glucose levels, but mostly their A1C, because that's going to give you like a 3-month snapshot. And if they have like low A1C levels and they tell me they don't eat a lot of carbs, then I'm like, okay, you have some other kind of toxicity happening in your liver then. Or they haven't been fasting and dieting long enough, because it can be a process. But you can get a lot. You can get fatty liver under control and like, you can change the trajectory of that 6 months to a year of like proper diet. Yeah. Liver's very resilient. It's actually one of the only organs in your body that can regenerate its own tissues. So super cool part about the liver. Rochelle asked, is it white fat, not brown fat? And once again, I don't know that, but I'm assuming it's white fat. So that's my I don't know, but if I had to guess, it would be white fat. All right. Any other questions? Okay. You guys brought great energy to tonight's call, and I really want to thank you for that, because I was highly energized by all of your presence. Love this community so much. There's nothing I love more than the fact that we can bounce back and forth with all these important topics. So just thank you for the way you showed up. You guys have honestly like the most just sincere, wonderful, contributory, curious energy, and I love it. So thank you for that. And yeah, couple plugs. TNC Live is happening this fall, and it is second week of September. So please reach out if you want the pricing breakdown for that, for both existing students and incoming students. Go ahead and reach out and we'll send you over pricing options. And then fall semester starts at the end of the month. August 29th is the first Tuesday night call. And then mental health Mondays are starting up again September 11th. So very excited for that. It's going to take over our phase 1 calls. And then graduation is like December 10th, I want to say. Super close to that. Carolyn asked, what is the TNC? It stands for Therapeutic Nutritional Counselor, and it is one of our certification courses here at Holistic Health Educators. And it's like going to naturopathic doctorate school crammed into 1 week is like how I describe it to people. And like, if you needed a crash course on being a naturopathic doctor, but not calling yourself a naturopathic doctor because you have way more liberty to, do everything you want with clients without getting in trouble for it, then be a TNC instead of calling yourself a doctor and having all these red flags, just be a TNC, run labs, help people out, and just have them sign a PMA or a really good waiver. Cool, Carolyn. Yeah, we can definitely get in touch. Do you mind sending us your email address or your phone number? You can direct message it to me, and then I'll have someone reach out about that. If anyone else wants the details, go ahead and shoot me a message. What time zone are you all in? Because we're also talking about this fall semester. If we have like 2 Tuesday night calls, or if we keep them all on one call, if we do like an earlier call and a later call. But I like love it when we're all together. But also, could have something later for the Pacific Coasters, one earlier for the East Coasters. Wow, we have so many Easterners on here for the fact that it's 10 p.m. at night. Let's go East Coast. Okay, love it. We're all being night owls together. Okay, a little combination of Central and Eastern. Okay, you guys are the diehards. Love this. Love this. All right. Just wait till never mind. Actually, I'm not going to complete the sentence. All right. Well, this has just been lovely. So thank you, everyone.